Financial markets are more than mere analytical data. They are narratives of human aspiration, innovation, and failure. On Wall Street, fortunes are made and lost every second. Every decision made is a piece in the complex puzzle of modern finance. But fundamentally ingrained within the very nature of finance lies an enduring question. Is the market truly efficient? In 1970, University of Chicago economics professor Eugene Fama, using research regarding market trends and patterns, came up with the hypothesis that would shape the course of finance for decades to come. The hypothesis stated that markets are efficient. Prices reflect all available information, and since it is not possible to predict future information, the market cannot be predicted. This theory is now what became known as the efficient market hypothesis.
Over the next 30 minutes, we'll take apart and analyze the core structures that hold the market together: trust, advancement, innovation, crisis, and regulation. Together, they tell a story that begins in 1932 and continues to unravel today.
Principles governing business behavior are an essential support to voluntary exchange, the defining characteristic of free markets. Voluntary exchange, in turn, implies trust in the word of those with whom we do business. If we could not do so, goods and services could not be exchanged efficiently.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone.
Should we automate away all the jobs, including the fulfilling ones? Should we allow AI machines to flood the internet with propaganda and fake news? Should we develop non-human minds smarter than our own, machines that might one day outnumber us?
This is going to be one of the watershed days in financial markets history.
It was a manic Monday in the financial markets. The Dow tumbled more than 500 points after two pillars of the street tumbled over the weekend. Lehman Brothers, a 158-year-old firm, filed for bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Merrill Lynch, fearing it could be next, agreed in an act of desperation to a shotgun marriage with Bank of America.
At their most basic level, financial markets are built on a lone, fragile foundation: trust. From the depths of the 1929 market crash, which led to the Great Depression, that trust was shattered. Banks failed, lifelong savings dried up, and millions of Americans lost all belief in the very financial systems that had promised them financial prosperity. In 1932, as unemployment climbed past 25%, Washington, D.C. became the symbolic headquarters of a desperate effort to rebuild trust in America's seemingly broken financial system. It was here, at America's oldest and most revered institutions, that leaders confronted an essential question. How do you restore confidence in a financial system when the entire foundation of it has crumbled?
During the Roosevelt administration in 1933, following mass financial insecurity as a result of the Great Depression, Congress passed the Glass-Steagall Act. The Glass-Steagall Act was an attempt to separate commercial and investment banks in order to balance the financial system. It was from this very building that the Treasury Department began to carry out policies designed to prevent another catastrophic collapse.
Through his famed fireside chats, President Roosevelt reassured the American public in the safety of their deposits. The establishment of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, or FDIC, was a major turning point in public sentiment. For the first time, Americans felt a sense of trust. They trusted that their money was safe and protected, even in the event of a bank failure. This was more than a regulation. It was a promise. But fundamentally ingrained in the nature of promises is that they are only as strong as the systems that support them.
The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation was founded from the ashes of the Great Depression in 1930. But its biggest challenge arose decades later during the savings and loan crisis of the mid-1980s. By then, public sentiment was strongly in favor of deregulation and risky lending practices, which had created a very unstable financial environment. More than 1,000 financial institutions collapsed, forcing the FDIC to interfere and take on enormous costs to protect depositors.
Lehman Brothers is going bankrupt, and financial markets from Asia to Europe are doing their utmost to prevent Monday from turning from dark to black. Employees of America's fourth largest investment bank saw the writing on the wall late Sunday.
These financial crises raise an important question regarding the very nature of market efficiency. If prices truly reflect all available information, as EMH suggests, why do these massive failures still occur? Are there inherent flaws in financial markets? Or do these disruptions expose the limits of institutional trust? These institutions have played a pivotal role in constructing not just the rules and regulations regarding financial markets, but these institutions have shaped the very nature of financial markets themselves. The Securities and Exchange Commission, established in 1934, became the guardian of transparency and integrity in financial markets.
The SEC's mission was set in stone, to assure that investors were able to access reliable information. But this presented a challenge. Even the strongest regulations are unable to fully account for human behavior or the pace of human innovation.
As markets advanced with innovation, so did the mechanisms used to drive them. From ticker tapes to quantitative algorithms, the instruments and structures of trade evolved swiftly. But each innovation brought forward new challenges and new vulnerabilities. The modern market, built on the backs of trust and regulation, was designed to stabilize an unpredictable financial ecosystem. However, even the financial systems built with the most attention to detail are challenged by crises and forged by innovation. And such as everything else in life, the nature of trust is not stagnant. When new obstacles emerge that challenge institutional trust, that trust must be rebuilt. Trust is earned, not given, and must be proven again and again in the face of challenge. In financial markets, crises are not anomalies. While they may not be a predictable feature of markets, they are certainly a recurring one. Each crisis exposes the weaknesses in a system designed to be efficient, yet somehow fails to foresee catastrophic disasters. From the great stock market crash of 1929 to the mortgage crisis of 2008, financial markets have been challenged by one enduring question: how strong can a financial system be when the very foundation it's built on is volatility? The Great Depression served as a nationwide lesson, brutally exposing the frail nature of unregulated financial institutions. With thousands of bank collapses, trust in America's financial system evaporated almost immediately.
In 1933, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation was founded to reestablish trust in the banking system. They did this by insuring deposits up to $2,500. Congress has since amended that amount to $250,000 per account. By insuring these deposits, the FDIC became a literal and metaphoric safety net for the American economy.
But financial crises didn't stop with the Great Depression. The FDIC would face many more difficult tests in the decades to come. By the early 1980s, strong public sentiment in favor of deregulation had created vast economic opportunities, but also laid the groundwork for new risks to financial markets. Savings and loan institutions, which no longer face strict regulations following the passage of the Garn-St. Germain Act, began to partake in risky investments, which ultimately led to comprehensive, widespread failures.
The FDIC swooped in. They spent billions of dollars to stabilize and secure institutions on the brink of failure and protect depositors. This crisis showcased a pivotal flaw in the efficient market hypothesis. EMH assumes that financial markets process information accurately and effectively based on analytics. However, that fails to take into account greed, inaccurate models, financial speculation, and unnecessary risks that oftentimes overshadow analytical decision-making.
From the Independent News, this is USA Tonight with Brad Holbrook.
Good evening. Today is Black Monday, the day the Dow dropped more than 500 points, the day the Dow dropped more than 22%, almost double the rate of the Black Monday that signaled the beginning of the crash of 1929. But this crash of 1987 is not just an American experience. Around the world, stock markets fell faster than a skydiver without a parachute.
On Monday, October 19th, 1987, the Dow Jones Industrial Average sunk 22%, marking the single worst plunge in Dow history. This was sparked by an inability for mathematical models to foresee technological failure. This catastrophic market crash is now known as Black Monday.
Black Monday was the first financial crisis caused by quantitative trading. Using a technique called arbitrage, quantitative models were designed to exploit small price differentials and capitalize on them. Instead, what ended up happening was these models created a series of sell orders that produced a market-wide chain reaction. It served as an important reminder that innovation doesn't always correlate to efficiency. It can also expose and create new risks.
Following Black Monday, financial regulators introduced new regulations and safeguards to protect investors. But even these measures couldn't inhibit future crises. In 2008, the financial system stood face to face with its biggest challenge since the Great Depression. The housing bubble, inflamed by risky subprime mortgages and complicated securitized debt, burst. and its effects were immediately felt throughout global markets.
The Treasury Department, at the time, led by Hank Paulson, played a major widespread role in the government's response, from arranging massive corporate bailouts to manufacturing the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP. These financial protections prevented a total systemic collapse. However, they also brought forth a new debate about the delicate relationship between institutional fairness and stability.
The 2008 crisis shed light on another fundamental flaw in the market's efficiency. That flaw being its dependence on intertwined systems that intensify risk. EMH has difficulty in explaining the degree to which amounts of debt were able to spread around unchecked.
What did we learn from 2008 when you were in the Treasury Department, and how is that being applied today?
There are two big mistakes when I look back at 2008 that we made that I think are relevant today. Number one, we were always too slow and too timid in responding to the crisis. The reason is we didn't know how bad it was going to get, and we didn't want to overreact. And it turned out it got really, really bad, and the right answer should have been overreacting to try to avoid the devastating recession that we ended up happening. So today, whether it's healthcare policymakers, fiscal policymakers, which means Congress, or the Federal Reserve, we should all be erring on the side of overreacting to try to avoid the worst economic outcomes. And number two, in 2008, we tried to be very targeted in helping homeowners, only helping homeowners who needed a little bit of help, because a lot of Americans were angry at the thought of their neighbor getting a bailout for being irresponsible, or so they thought. So we tried to target our programs. It ended up we didn't help very many people. We would have been much better off if we had been much more generous in our support for homeowners, deserving and not deserving. We would have had a less serious crisis. So my advice to Congress, as they're designing their programs to help workers and help small businesses, err on being generous.
When America gets back to work, how long does it take to recover from this?
You know, the economy can bounce back fairly quickly. It's the workers that take time. I mean, that's one of the other lessons from 2008. It took more than 10 years to put America fully back to work relative to where they were before the crisis. 10 years. And so that's what we have to try to avoid, having these mass layoffs. We can't have another 10-year recovery.
Every crisis leaves a distinct mark on financial institutions. New regulations designed for better oversight and a fresh spotlight on transparency and fairness. But the question remains, are markets as an institution intrinsically strong, or are they always susceptible to future crises?
The Treasury, the FDIC, and the SEC are symbols of strength and resilience in the American financial system. Yet, as history shows time and again, no financial system, no matter how strong it is insusceptible to crisis.
As we progress, we'll dive into how regulation and oversight try to balance financial flexibility with market stability. But as we'll see, even the most thought-through measures bring with them their own unique challenges.
Ultimately, there's no dividing line between Main Street and Wall Street. We rise or fall together as one nation. So these reforms will help lift our economy and lead all of us to a stronger, more prosperous future. And that's why I'm so honored to sign these reforms into law, and I'm so grateful to everybody who worked so hard to make this day possible. Thank you very much, everybody.
At its core, regulation is designed to uphold systemic balance. When there is not enough regulation, financial markets can spiral into a state of disarray. When there is too much regulation, innovation can decline. From the Securities Act of 1933 to the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010, the nation's capital has served as a principal location where this balance is often quantified, assessed, and redefined. Regulation doesn't simply regard the laws governing institutions, it regards trust. While regulations shape market interactions, trust is what allows them to prosper. The Securities and Exchange Commission, or the SEC, was established after the market crash of 1929 during the Great Depression. Its goal was clear: safeguard investors, preserve the integrity of financial markets, and promote asset accumulation. But given its vagueness, the SEC has always been overshadowed by controversy.
Congress entrusted the SEC with keeping markets transparent and upholding the integrity of American financial institutions. The SEC began requiring companies to disclose information in order to prove their integrity. This marked a pivotal shift in how markets were regulated. It ensured that investors and regulators could gain access to dependable information.
But as financial markets evolved, so did the obstacles regulators had to face. Making sure that markets were fair in a quickly changing financial ecosystem became an arduous task. Over the course of the decades following the Great Depression, the government expanded its regulatory role, with 3 acts marking significant turning points in the expansion of government oversight. The Bank Holding Company Act of 1956, the Commodities Future Trading Commission Act of 1974, and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002.
With each financial crisis bringing forward new regulations, these regulations created a slew of unintended and unanticipated consequences. For example, in 1999, during the Clinton administration, repealing the Glass-Steagall Act was seen as an important step in refurbishing banking laws. But now, contemporary critics on both sides of the aisle claim that it made the 2008 financial crisis imminent by creating a resurgence in risky behavior.
Following the financial crisis of 2008, the Dodd-Frank Act was designed to focus on risks to the financial system and prevent another catastrophic mishap. The law introduced monumental changes, such as the Volcker Rule, which prohibited banks from proprietary trading.
The FDIC played a major role in manufacturing and putting in place key provisions, such as the Orderly Liquidation Authority, which was aimed at helping financial institutions on the brink of failure without government bailouts.
However, Dodd-Frank has been increasingly polarizing. People who support the law often argue that it has protected and fortified the financial system, while its critics claim that it has curbed innovation and harmed smaller banks with disproportionate costs. In today's financial climate, the SEC faces a brand new challenge: technology. From nanosecond trading to cryptocurrencies, financial oversight seemingly lags behind innovation. As we approach the next financial era, it's important that we keep in mind the lessons learned along the way. Financial regulation, in order to be effective, must only evolve hand in hand with financial markets. But it must also uphold systemic balance between flexibility and oversight, innovation and institutional strength.
Since its inception in the modern era, financial regulation has been about creating balance in a system of inherent volatility. It's not just a matter of market efficiency, it's a question of strength, fairness, and trust when faced with volatility.
In the next segment, we'll explore the role that innovation plays in transforming modern financial markets, how it creates breakthroughs, causes instability, and market efficiency. Crisis can be summed up as the threat that no market wants to face, but every market must confront. Over the course of the modern era, financial crises have shed light on weaknesses, redefined financial systems, and reestablished trust in regulatory institutions. Each individual crisis holds with it individual lessons that reveal not only the pitfalls within systems, but also the strengths of those who operate within them. The resulting Great Depression from the 1929 stock market crash was the first real test of the modern financial system. The lack of public trust in the banking system led to a series of sweeping reforms that were intended to ensure a financial collapse of the same sorts would never occur again.
The introduction of deposit insurance changed the landscape of the banking system. It essentially promised the American people that their deposits were secure, even when faced with immense economic vulnerability.
Fast forward to 2008, and the vulnerabilities in the system are once again exposed. The Great Recession revealed the true dangers of untamed risk, unchecked greed, reckless derivatives, and over-leveraged financial institutions.
The government's response was quick but contentious. The Troubled Asset Relief Program, also known as TARP, bailed out financial institutions deemed too big to fail, including Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. While TARP was able to stabilize markets, it also raised renewed questions regarding accountability and market fairness.
The 2008 crisis led directly to the Dodd-Frank Act, which aimed to eliminate systemic risk by adding ways the SEC can ensure market transparency, adjusting capital requirements for banks, and placing safety net mechanisms in place for major banks. Crisis serves as both a challenge to overcome and an opportunity to grow. It forces financial markets to combat stressful situations and build back stronger, more secure systems. As financial markets progress into the future, the question is no longer whether or not crises will happen, but how we respond when they do. At its most basic level, EMH assumes that markets are driven by rational decisions based on mathematical models that process information instantaneously. However, as the story of financial markets progresses, we learn that markets are shaped not only by analytics, but also by human desire, technological advancement, and systemic innovation. At no point in financial history has trust in financial markets been more important or more fragile than it is now. In the modern age of artificial intelligence and quantitative trade, financial systems are advancing faster than ever before. With the rise of retail investors and zero-commission trading platforms like Robinhood, financial markets have become more accessible to the everyday consumer. However, this newfound market access has brought with it an onslaught of new challenges spanning from market manipulation to trading based on viral internet trends.
Trust has been redefined. It is no longer just about financial institutions and trades. It's about people. The GameStop frenzy demonstrated the extent to which a concerted action orchestrated by retail investors could rattle even the most prominent figures.
However, this new power dynamic raises questions about ensuring market integrity in an environment where information and disinformation spreads rapidly. With crypto magnates promising the blockchain would usher in an era of openness and decentralization, many retail investors were eager to follow along. But their swift rise to the top brought with it new risks, increased volatility, and market uncertainty. By operating outside of the established oversight frameworks, cryptocurrencies challenge the very existence of efficiency.
Blockchain technology has revolutionized the modern financial ecosystem. While it has the ability to enhance public trust and credibility through its transparent algorithms, it also brings forward new risk. The nearly overnight crash of FTX served as a stark reminder that technological innovation without proper regulation can destroy public trust just as easily as it can create it.
From AI to high-frequency trading, modern technology has forever changed the landscape of financial markets. These new tools usher in an era of unparalleled efficiency, but also introduce unparalleled risk.
Some financial analysts warn that high-frequency trading profoundly increases volatility and leaves traditional traders at a significant disadvantage. Which begs the question, is high-frequency trading efficiency or market manipulation?
As financial markets are evolving more rapidly, the relationship between regulatory oversight and trust becomes progressively intertwined. Finding the appropriate balance between them is critical for keeping an efficient and fair financial ecosystem.
The Treasury Department has highlighted the demand for regulation in emerging financial markets in order to ensure that technological advancement isn't at the expense of market stability.
Modern financial markets are an enigma. They're efficient but unreliable, strong yet volatile. They showcase the ever-changing dynamic between human behavior, innovation, and trust in an ever-changing system.
The efficient market hypothesis gives us a small window into financial markets, but EMH doesn't tell us the full story. Financial markets are more than a reflection of just numbers and graphs. They're a reflection of humanity. They tell a story of our biggest desires, despairs, and ambitions. And while efficiency may be the goal, trust is the bedrock.